Super fast. Awesome. Okay, so hello and welcome to the third webinar of our Booth Camp series. This one is How to Wow on the Show Floor. So before we get started, we have Kelsey from Merits here, and she's going to just kind of talk to us about lead retrieval at the show. So Kelsey, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then you can start sharing yours.
Right, and let me play here. All right, can you guys see everything okay?
Yep, you are good. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kelsey. I am with Merits. We are the lead retrieval vendor for the Summer Fancy Food Show. So I'm just going to quickly be going over what lead retrieval is and the return on investment that you can get out of using it. So what is lead retrieval? So the value and benefits of lead retrieval and why you need it. Lead retrieval is the process of capturing your data at a live event. Key benefits are capturing engagement with prospects and customers. It demonstrates your booth's success with real-time metrics. It enables a seamless conversation without having to write down contact information. You can capture vital notes on your interactions, which can be used when routing leads. That way you have efficient follow-up post-event. And it's a cloud-based app, so nothing can be lost. You can scan on airplane mode, save in your app until you get connection to go to your portal. It's a really great way so you don't break the momentum in your conversation with potential customers. Very easy to just scan their badge and get all of their data instead of collecting business cards, which we're finding a lot of people now are not actually bringing enough, if any, with them. Exhibiting at Summer Fancy Food or any show is a really big investment. So we want to make sure you're getting the best return on that investment. The hope is that you likely are going to speak with hundreds of attendees that are interested in the products and services, and they're waiting to hear from you. Merits lead retrieval swap is the solution for that. You can collect and qualify the sales leads, capture conversations through notes. You can rate your interaction with a star. It helps create your ROI story, and you can download the leads in real time. So as soon as you talk to somebody that day, you can follow up with them after the event. And you can also create your own custom qualifiers or survey questions as well. These are just some of what exhibitors are saying about lead retrieval: seamless and easy, fairly simple and straightforward, great tool for organizing leads, easy tool when approached by prospects, easy to use and understand, and easy to download leads. So just some different things about our system. This is my contact info, my direct line, but you can also reach out to our support team as well. You'll likely be directed to me, but in case I'm out of the office or anything, you can reach out to them. And additionally, we currently have discounted pricing. This discounted pricing ends tomorrow, and the prices increase on Wednesday, June 4th. So if you want to take advantage of that pricing, definitely get that order in as soon as possible. Again, tomorrow is the last day for that. So I'll take any questions or anything in the chat, but I'll stop sharing my screen for you, Christy.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you. Thank you. We just before we got on here, Tom and I, Tom was just, also saying that lead retrieval is such a helpful tool. But we're going to get more into that as we get into our webinar, which again is How to Wow on the Show Floor. So I am so excited to introduce you to Tom Donegan from Field Trip Snacks and Susan Palmer from Little Red Kitchen Bake Shop. Both of these folks have been a part of the Fancy Food Show, so they know it. They know what's going on. They know just the ins and outs, and they are here to share their insight. So I'm gonna share my screen so we can show the questions. But if you guys remember when you registered for this webinar, um, we asked you, what are the top 3 questions that you have? So we took a look at all of those questions and we condensed them down into 10 questions. So this doesn't mean that you shouldn't be asking more questions, but these are the main ones that we saw consistently come up. So we're going to walk through those, but please feel free to throw more questions in the chat, and then we're going to answer those after we go through the top 10. So Tom and Susan, I would love to let you guys talk a little bit about your company. Maybe, let's do this, a little icebreaker, your first experience at the Fancy Food Show. And I think that that'll fill our time. So Susan, why don't you go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you. So I'm the owner and founder of Little Red Kitchen Bake Shop. We've been in business for 10 and a half years. So we make handcrafted cookies, blondies, and brownies. We won the Gold Sophie last year and the Product of the Year food for our molasses spice cookie. So we focus on flavors that you loved growing up. So our first experience at the show, oh geez, I don't even remember what year it was, but we were in, this was like before they even had different up and coming booths and areas like with Startup CPG and Naturally New York. This was kind of like the back row where you got just a little table. So this was like a long time ago was my first experience with the show. And then eventually we graduated up into our own booth. And then I became part of Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce in order to get into the Brooklyn section, which is where we've been for the last few years, which has been a great experience being in that section.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Tom.
Hey there. I'm Tom Donegan, founder of Field Trip Snacks. We make better for you jerky, meat sticks, pork rinds. We first started with the Fancy Food Show in 2012. It actually was in Washington, D.C. at the time. It was our first trade show ever, and we did not really know what we were doing. So something like this would have been very helpful. I was warned by some industry experts that it was going to get very expensive even after the show. We signed up for this thing called Freeman and all the costs associated with getting your product from the front door to the show floor. We decided that we were going to do it on our own, and we had a crate, and we were running through the hall being chased by people who told us that we could not do this in a passenger elevator with a big wooden crate. I would not advise doing this. I would say learn a little more before you actually do the show, which is why this is very helpful. But it was a great show. We were very new, started the business with 2 business partners, and we really didn't ever have any real food experience or trade show experience. So everything was new to us and exciting because my previous life, I was a lawyer, and anything is better than sitting at a desk and revising a document that you don't understand why needs to be in place in the first place. So I was very happy to be figuring things out on the fly at the Fancy Food Show in DC. So yeah, that was our first show. We got a lot of new business. We met JetBlue at the first show that we ever did, and we've been on JetBlue ever since. So it's been a very exciting time for us at Field Trip. So yeah, that's our first experience, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot more detail as we continue.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for sharing those first time experiences. I wish I saw someone chasing you down, yelling, "Don't do this." But all right. So the first question that came up a lot was, how do I attract and engage attendees as they walk by my booth?
All right, I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
So I've always been I stay behind my my booth because I follow the rules. I know that was always say don't go in front of your booth rule. Stay off your phone. That's like a big thing. I know we're always connected to our phone, but you want to make eye contact with people. You want to say hi. You want to have be happy, be smiling to people. Ask them do they want to try a sample? Do they want something? Scanning their badges, especially if you're looking to like really engage with certain buyers or something, and learning what the badge colors mean is really important, because the badges all have different colors, where they're a buyer, whether they're a service provider, where they're just, maybe another exhibitor, or just a brand that's walking the show. And that kind of helps weed things out and saves your energy, because it's exhausting talking to people for 3 days and engaging with people, whether they're coming up or you're trying to get this. Don't be screaming at someone, they'll make their way over to you. And sometimes buyers are coming with specific companies in mind, or they're not your right buyer also. So learning the categories and who the right category buyer is for you is also really important. But just, being open and having that essentially open impression, engaging, inviting people into your booth is really, really helps. And, we'll get into booth decor as well that will help invite people in as well.
Yeah. So the smile, you gotta be
smile. You gotta be smiling. You gotta make eye contact and be off your phone. That's like the biggest thing, is not to be like looking downward. You have to make eye contact. Yes.
Yeah. Not too much. All right, Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of great points, Susan. I think that, obviously you want to attract as many people over to your booth as possible. You shouldn't be in the middle of the aisle hawking people, but I think, kind of toward the edge of the booth, we always have some openings in the booth so we can get in and out to interact with potential customers, potential accounts. So basically, we have a big wooden bar that I'll get into as far as like how you set up the booth to be more inviting. But we lean against the bar and we have a smile, and we try to invite people over. Hey, you want to try some samples? And it's not get one here before they're gone type stuff. But I think that being approachable is very important. And for us, I guess we're going to talk about the booth elements, so I'll save that. But yeah, as far as from an initial standpoint, looking cohesive as a group, I think making sure that everyone kind of represents the brand, and then also eye contact and a smile, and obviously put the phone away. And sometimes it's unavoidable. You get a call and you have to jump on a call. Step away from the booth if you need to, if you have the ability to, because no one wants to feel second place when they're when they have a potential account that could give you a huge purchase order. So
Got it. All right. So Tom, I have to say I'm very interested in what you were talking about. So our next question was what booth design elements make a small space feel interactive, inviting, and memorable? And I think you mentioned something about a wooden countertop.
when we first decided that we were going to do a trade show, like I had a vision in my mind of like the experience that I wanted to bring to the show. I'd never owned a store before, so I didn't have an experience of setting up a space, but like this was my opportunity to put the brand in a memorable light for customers. So we found a carpenter on Etsy. His name was Moose, and he was located in Oklahoma. And initially, we used him to design some signage for our trade show that we did, a small trade show. And he said, "Oh, I could do so much more." So we initially had him build a 5-foot bar for us that folded up and was able to be transported to different shows in that crate that we ran away from people with. We also had a hutch that we just displayed our products on. So for us, I know that getting things to trade shows is a challenge, but if you could pick a few elements that you want people to remember you by, like it feels more custom than a traditional trade show company. And don't get me wrong, we use Ace Exhibits or any other companies that make expandable trade show walls, because sometimes you need to not cut corners, but do what everyone else does. But it's kind of creating those memorable moments. We also have animals that are featured on our packaging. So we found a producer of inflatable mascots. So we had an 8-foot tall or a 9-foot tall cow and a 10-foot tall turkey that we would have dancing behind our booth at times. And every time we pull those out, it is just it's a party and people love it, and it's just obviously it's a huge magnet because not many people have things like that. So can't really walk around shows with the mascots, but if you have them behind the booth, and it's just it's almost like that wacky wavable hand guy at a with a little more tasteful, I'd like to say, but that's kind of how we've tried to stand out. Um, and like I said, don't get me wrong, we use some traditional trade show booth materials, but just kind of thinking a little outside the box goes a long way for accounts.
Awesome. Carpenter's name Moose. Gotta just go with them, right? All right, Susan, how about you?
Sure. So my background came from food styling and food photography. So I brought those elements into building my booth, also DIY, because we're trying to save money. So there were things that I spent money on, which was my backdrop, getting custom tablecloths on, and the retractable banner, and everything else was things either I had from food styling or just things that I thought would work. Um, One thing that I think is really important is bringing color to your booth, because a lot of the food that we make is brown. Brown isn't colorful. So we want to add complementary colors that are going to pop. So obviously there's plenty of red in my booth. It's in the name, but then focus on a color wheel that's going to be complementary to red is teal. So we have red and teal. So things that are going to go ahead and, and pop and be like standing out on the road there, you're going to find the red booth because that's going to pop out there. We have a big banner that has a big logo on there. A pop-up banner has photos of our baked goods on there. It's a lot easier for me because I take the food photography, so I know what to focus on. And then it's harder kind of to, prop up packs of cookies, but I have risers that I just put them on. By the way, people like to walk off with your their samples. Lock them down. I tape them down. So that's something that you need to, your display samples, like find a way, even if you have signage up that says this is samples only, tape those down, because you have some people that just kind of go in and don't realize it, which can be a little frustrating. But yeah, if you're, kind of trying to save money on things and you're local, drive in, you can load in yourself. So you can kind of just go with those like plastic bins that you can get from Costco to store things, and spend the money on things that matter. You want a really good, well-designed banner, even if it's just your logo, just spend the money to make sure that it's at the right resolution so that it's not blurry. I generally recommend, so we have a silk banner because that way when it stretches out, it doesn't wrinkle anymore. All the wrinkles come out when we stretch out. And go for something that's a little easier. I did the ones that, like the poles. Eventually I went one that retracts, and they're so much easier. Definitely learned the lesson on that one. And then of course, your tablecloth with your branding, and you want your name there. You want people to know who you are and to associate with us. So we're the red brand. People know and identify us as it is.
That's such good advice, especially just like even thinking about like wrinkles in
Yeah.
your banner. Like I would have never thought of that. So
Yeah.
that's
Get a portable steamer. So then that way, if it's in your tablecloths, because even if they're folded nicely, you want to get those wrinkles out. You want things to look neat and clean on your table.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and what I would give to see someone trying to sneak off with one of your cookies without talking to you.
So many times.
Shame.
The other thing is we put the table as high as it goes. So then that way everything is closer to eye level as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree on the samples too. We have resorted to taping in samples so that, if people want a sample, great. We'll give you a sample if you ask for it. But the brazen grab and run is you'd be surprised. I think we'll probably get into it with recognizing badges and everything else, as Susan already talked about. But like really knowing who you are chatting with, because it can really dictate, obviously your interest level, but also like, if it's just another exhibitor, come back at the end of the show. We'll give you some samples at the end of the show. So it's, figuring out who is who and what to look for is really important.
Yeah. Okay. So we're kind of tiptoeing around it, but the next question is, what equipment and tools do you find the most helpful for your booth setup? And Susan, do you want to jump in on that one first?
Sure. So I kind of talked about my DIY load-in approach. Now, I did do a West Coast show. I did Las Vegas twice. So that one we shipped everything. We utilized Freeman for it because it was the easiest way to go. Use their services for shipping. We built the pallet, we shipped it out. We used their services to ship it back. It was the easiest way to go. Maybe I could have found a less expensive way to ship it. But honestly, when you're doing so much planning for it, sometimes you want to go with ease. So if you are coming from out of town, use Freeman services. They are there to assist you. That goes along with if you need refrigeration, if you need ice, whatever you need, go ahead and utilize their services. They are there to assist you for the show. If you are local and you are able to drive, do the self load in option. It can be very hectic the day of, and especially with load out, especially because day of you can only bring things in on 2 wheels, and they are very strict about on 2 wheels. Luckily, load out day they don't care. So what I have is a cart that converts from 2 wheels to 4 wheels, and I keep it with me. So on load out day, everything can go out pretty easily. Load in day, 2 wheels only. I use bins for everything that can go into there. Everything's collapsible, so it's small. So those are, you know, the tools that I use, and the lead retrieval. I know we had the introduction, but really, it's a cost that is worth spending. Not only because, again, most people aren't carrying business cards. You'll lose business cards. You can make your notes. You're talking to so many people. It's the best way to stay organized, not only during the show, but after the show, because you download your leads. It's on a spreadsheet. And when I'm doing my follow-ups, I'm able to kind of highlight and make notes and know who I've contacted, who I've not. So it's a tool that's worth investing in. And if you don't purchase it, there really is, the only other way is old-fashioned by just taking notes with people, or writing things down. So it's the best way to do it.
I bet everyone is on Amazon right now checking that 2-wheel to 4-wheel cart right now. So if you're not, watch out. It might be sold out after this. So Tom, what about you?
I think mirroring Susan's points about using Freeman. I think the specialty food portal makes it really easy to figure out who to contact and what resources are available if you need them. We've always outsourced shipping to the shows, but Freeman, obviously from a price standpoint, is very close. So I don't think you're losing out much, especially if this is one of your first shows and you're shipping somewhere. If you're shipping in from across the country, it makes sense to trust the expert who is going to be handling the booth materials once they get there. We haven't had to use any refrigeration or anything else, but we've rented tables and chairs before, so that's really easy for Freeman if you want to save some money, or you need something that you can't bring into the show. The one thing, and this is kind of like separate, but there is a program called Food Export North America that is a great resource for companies that are at these shows and looking to export their products. They actually help with booth costs. It's every year you have to reapply for the program. It would be for next year that you'd be applying, but we've been doing it for years, and it's great. They introduce you to buyers in Canada and all these other foreign countries, and they also help with the trade show expenses if you are exporting to other countries. So that's a good resource to save some money in the future for things like this.
I'm going to add to that. So as I mentioned, I've been in the New York aisle with Brooklyn Chamber, who do give a rebate on it. So you should check. There are a number of state aisles. So you should check with, and it's similar to Food Export, which I have done their program in the past as well. So you should check with your state associations. If they have an aisle, if you're eligible, sign up for it for next year. They usually, they don't always do both shows, but sometimes some of the states do both shows. And so it's a good resource. Sometimes it's nice to be associated with the state aisle because these state local buyers tend to go down that specific aisle as well.
Awesome. All right. So we've talked about, I feel like we've been talking about like getting our booth ready, getting everything. So now like thinking about showtime. So our next question is what is the most effective sampling strategy in terms of quantity, packaging, and I know we talked about display a little bit, but I think that we can, there's a little bit more there. So Tom, do you want to take a stab at this question first?
Sure, yeah. Like I said, field trip, we have jerky, we have meat sticks, we have pork rinds. And I think this is really situational dependent. What is your product? How is it best sampled? For our jerky, we have, food grade scissors that we take pieces out of packaging and tongs and put them into a glass jar. The sampling aspect of it can really reflect on how the brand looks in general. We initially, when we had a bigger booth, we did a 20 by 10. We basically created this custom sampling station where we had all these WEC jars. We use WEC jars because they look classy and they're, really inexpensive. And we put our jerky in there, and then we sample out to customers as they're coming to our booth. If it's a meat stick, we'll give a meat stick to a potential buyer, or a half-ounce meat stick instead of a 1 ounce. So I think it really is situational dependent what your product is, but you want to have that product be best represented. So controlling what the humidity is like. You're looking at a 7 or 8 hour show, so you want to be able to cut or sample along the way so that product stays fresh. Obviously that's a huge important. If you're cooking food, I would say batch cook instead of putting out everything that you're going to have for the whole show, because again, this is your chance to potentially win an account that either you had never heard of or you have always wanted to be in their account. So we've met a lot of accounts at trade shows and won a lot of business because we're always thinking about how is our product best represented at our trade show booth.
So we're cookies, so it's messy. So we tend to make mini cookies and cut them into quarters just because they cut a lot nicer than like the bigger normal size cookies, and then the crumbs end up everywhere. So we usually use one of our second tables as like the cutting table, and then we cut fresh as we go, just to keep them from getting stale. If you have a baked good, maybe it works for your baked item to cut in advance. Maybe it doesn't. I just do it as I go, just to keep them from getting stale. And I do a sampling cup with that. And then we also do a hot chocolate. So I usually have a crock pot going, and I just pour sample cups as people go, so they stay hot. Or sometimes if someone comes by for cookies, I ask if they want a sample of the hot chocolate. And then I don't do all the flavors, so I kind of rotate throughout the day. Which flavors, so that way it's not people going too much. Generally, I would go not as much as you think you need, because people eat a lot through the show, especially the buyers. So it's not that maybe they're not interested in you, it's that they've eaten too much and their palate is done, and they just want the samples later on. So don't be offended if they don't want a sample. I always end up with too much. Luckily, the show partners with City Harvest, and we tend to just donate a lot of stuff after the show to them. Or we kind of just do trades with other brands if we want to try something at the end of the show. But if it's okay if you have to start cutting back on samples because you didn't bring too many, but underestimate your amount, because even when we think we underestimated, we still ended up with too much.
Yeah, I would mirror that. The amount of booths that buyers are going through. We send a lot of samples out after, and again, that's another great thing for the lead retrieval. You know, the notes section in lead retrieval, it's like send samples, and the minute we get back to the office, we can look at our list and we can say, okay, well, let's put together the sample boxes that we're going to send. Because again, you know, it'd be great to say that we won all the business from just the sampling we did at the Fancy Food Show, but I do think that, you know, it's that follow up. It's attracting the interest, making sure you stay relevant after the show, and sending the samples like you said you would, the follow through. So
Awesome. All right. So, in addition to samples, the other question that came up a lot was around swag. So, should I offer swag or merchandise? And if so, what do you think has the most impact?
we've done a lot of tote bags. I think tote bags, when done well, obviously our branding, you can use them after a show is over. I think that you know there's a lot of bags out there, so you know I don't think swag is necessary. There's been a lot of shows where we haven't had anything to give away, and people have been fine with that. Um, but you know, if you're going to do something, make it approachable, like, you know, not size based. You know, like t-shirts are also expensive, so I don't think handing out t-shirts makes a lot of sense. I think you know, a tote bag, if you know, if it's going to be a personal wearable item, maybe a hat. But again, we're not handing out all of this stuff. I think some of the bigger brands can afford to just hand out $10,000 worth of tote bags, but you know, I don't know how effective that is either. All that really does is allow people to steal samples from other customers in a bag. So we've seen that before. But yeah, if you're going to do it, make it tasteful and represent your brand. I wouldn't just put something out there just to have your branding on it if it's not representative of your brand. If you're a fine food and you put out a, you know, plastic bag with your branding on it, I don't think that really represents who you are. So I think I would be mindful of quality, and you know, just making sure that your brand shines through whatever you're going to be handing out.
I don't do swag. To be honest, I've never done it. But Tom is right. Just make sure that it whatever you do, it makes sense cost wise, and it fits with your brand. You don't need to do anything big. You could do stickers, you could do pins, you could do pens, something small. If you really feel like you need to have something, I would go with maybe one of those three things. Just starting out, you don't need to do a tote bag, or just you don't need to. You don't have to do it. So don't feel like you have the pressure.
Yeah,
It's
I
good to
agree with that. Yeah. You know,
I'm glad that you guys both had like different, like opposite, like different sides of that. Like you do, like this is what you can do, this is what you don't even have to. So, but Tom, what were you gonna say?
I agree that you don't have to, and don't feel pressured to do it. You know, I think probably for our first 3 or 4 years of shows, we did not hand out anything other than our own product, because you know it's really what you're selling, right? You're selling your product. I think it's when we had a stable of buyers or someone that would come by, it's like, here's a tote bag, you know, bring it back to the office. Or you know, some of the bigger customers, it would be nice to package it in something, for the tote bag example. But again, like, don't feel pressured. Spend money where it, you know, if there was a question as to whether I wanted to have something special for my booth or whether I wanted swag, I would pick special for the booth 100 times over, because that's really what's going to create the memory for a buyer.
Awesome. I think that this shifts nicely into our next question, which is how do I hold attention, manage multiple visitors, and make that booth experience feel magical? So I think you guys are starting to, like, you guys have mentioned how you've paired your, you know, like how you presented your samples and like those little pieces that gave it personality. But is there, like, what else is there?
Yeah, I think for us, it's creating the magnet, whether it's the mascots or whether it's the wooden bar materials, or we had actually a full-on um, a wooden wall behind us. We specialize at heavy trade show booths here at Field Trip, so we've had to stay in shape to be able to carry them into and out of trade shows. But we just think about a flow. Like how does it look like when a customer when a retailer is walking the aisle? How are they going to come into your booth? Who's going to greet them? How are they going to be sampling? What are they going to be sampling? I didn't mention before Susan's point about like being selective, and if you have 50 different items, and not to say that many people probably have 50 items, but for us we have probably 12 to 15 different items now, and we don't sample 12 to 15 items at the trade show. We pick what we want to sell at the show. We have a curated selection, and if someone wants to try something else, either we give them a bag of it or a stick of it, or we can send them samples after the show. So I think, bringing them into the booth, introducing the brand to them, and then also making sure that you capture their information in the process, making that seem like 100% part of the process. Because if you've just not wasted, but you've spent all of this time with someone, you want to make sure that you are following up with them after the show. So it's kind of creating just a flow of an experience for a retailer or a distributor or whoever else it is. So yeah, you create the draw, you bring them in, you sample, you capture the information, and you follow up like you said you would.
Sorry, I have a special guest.
Hey, who is this?
This is Timmy. He wanted to come up and say hi. I think Tom echoed a lot of it. And as I mentioned before, you can have a lot of service providers coming to your table. I don't know if we're gonna get on that later or not. But one thing that's really important is the elevator pitch. So you're bringing them in with the look. You're going to ask if they want a sample. If they say no, don't let that throw you off, but then just kind of continuing on selling your brand, being confident, but also not taking too long, but knowing and being confident in what you're selling to them and being able to kind of answer questions quickly. If it's a buyer or a distributor, knowing your pricing just off the top of your head. If you need a cheat sheet, especially if you're having someone that is a friend or a volunteer kind of helping with your booth, have a little cheat sheet down below. So then that way they're able to answer your questions for you, especially when it comes to pricing, case packing, whatever the case is. But really that like 30-second elevator pitch is practice it, be confident with it. And just knowing everything really well is super important and helps just pull everything together.
Love it. And that kind of brings me into the next one of our other questions that we had, which is like, what are buyers looking for? So you mentioned like telling your brand story, having the pricing down pat, and then how do you adapt it? Like if you're going to be talking to different buyers throughout the whole day, or press, or an investor or something like that, how does that conversation change?
Yeah, I think it really is just paying attention, because the badges should tell you who they are and what channel they're in. It changes a lot, as far as what information is on there, but there should generally be enough information on there to be able to get you on the right mindset for the conversation. So if it's a retailer, you're really looking at, packaging, shelf appeal, how it fits into the set. Distributors want to figure out, whether you have either accounts that want their distribution, or you have the ability to get to a distributor and figure out what the margin would look like there. So when we first started this, we did not do any of this, right? We were brand new. We just, we figured it out as we went along. So, if you're confused, or if I'm seems like I'm trying to intimidate people, don't be intimidated, because honestly, like, part of the process of bringing new brands to market is the excitement. And everyone's looking for the next item to bring to an interested and curated set. So I think that, having something new and not being the most seasoned person out there is not a deal killer for anyone. It's the start of the conversation. So, we just know your product, know what you're selling, and be open to learning from the process is kind of what we've done at trade shows. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver ever. And it's okay to say, I'm not quite sure what the price would be for your account. Let me capture your information. We'll crunch some numbers on our side and send you back, something that would work for both of us. Or else, it's just about that follow through.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the other thing is, and it may take time, especially if you're new and you're a little unsure. It can be very exciting when a buyer comes by in a store that you're very interested in. Knowing your category and knowing exactly where you belong. If it's a larger store, they may not be the right category buyer for you. So you should ask them, who is the right person? Who should I be speaking to? Because as interested as they might be, they can't really help you get to where you need to be. If it is a smaller, it's an independent store, they may be the only buyer. They are the key decision maker. And then that's the way to go. But for larger stores, if you can get that information, if you can just say, who can I contact later on? Can I email you if they don't know off the bat? Can I email you to get the right person to make an introduction? That's really helpful. And if you're unsure at the moment, maybe asking them if you're really developing a rapport, where should I be placed? It can be confusing, especially for us. We're a packaged cookie, but we're not center aisle. We're bakery. We're perimeter. So it took even time for me to figure out that we're not meant to be center aisle. We're meant to be on perimeter, and kind of like finding your place of where you really belong in the store, in the grocery, and the right area for that, and then the right buyer for you.
So, kind of connected to this conversation, how do you train staff? Like, if you're not the body that they're talking to, like, how do you train those people to hit on these different points that you want them to touch on?
I think for us, it's really about the flow of how everything is happening at the booth. I think the people who are sampling the product should know what the product tasting notes are and the process of bringing, that to making that product. But they might not be the people that are responsible for negotiating, the pricing and everything else with the buyers or the distributors. So I think if you have multiple people, that probably means you're also there to help out. So, making sure that they know that they don't have to have all the answers, because, you don't want someone who's just tasked with sampling to try to be talking to a Whole Foods buyer or a Costco buyer about what the pricing is, because that just doesn't work for anyone. So I think the flow, as we talked about, like this person is going to be responsible for bringing people into the booth, and this person is going to be sampling, and not to say you need a staff of 10, but if you have two people, one being the founder and the person with the knowledge generally of what the pricing is going to be, they should be the person that's handed off the account after they've tried the product. It's nice to have a huge group of people in front of your booth, but if everyone's demanding a sample, okay, samples happen first, and then we talk about who you are and what we can do for you as a customer.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, my team is, I do everything. My other team are my bakers. So I usually have my friends that come and help at the show. So they've been along this journey with me for a long time. So they know more or less how to sell things. But when it comes to pricing and distribution, they can't answer those questions. So let's say for some reason I stepped away to grab food or bathroom break or whatever. They usually get the information from me, or sometimes they'll have the lead on their phone. They'll capture the lead, or they'll just direct them over to me if I'm engaged with someone else. The other thing is, have your other helpers, kind of have them focus on the visitors to your booth, the non-priority visitors, kind of have them take the flow and the engagement to them. So that way you can focus on your priority visitors, the people that you do want to be focused It helps conserve your energy and your focus with the show.
Got it. All right. So, one of just talking to you has just sparked all of these other questions that I have, which I'm sure everyone else is like, what? Like, let's get to questions. But the last one that I wanted to touch on was follow-up strategies. So post show, you have your list. How do how you have an amazing amount of leads? How do you like what do you guys usually do? How do you make sense of it?
Yeah, I'll jump in here because I haven't, sung lead retrieval's praises really as much as I had intended to. But I do think that it is a very important part of this process. I think that you are already spending a lot of money on this trade show. It is such a drop in the bucket for the show, and the thing that probably is going to make the most difference as far as potential wins coming out of a show. So, it's from the beginning we did lead retrieval, and at the time it wasn't on our phones. It was this machine that they would rent you, and then you would just basically take someone's badge, you scan it in, it would capture all the information, and then it would spit it out at the end of the show. So it's a lot easier now with smartphones, and I think it's been very important for us. I think taking diligent notes in the notes section after you scan, it's not just about scanning because you're going to get confused at the end. It's like, wait a minute, who is this? And it gives you that, especially if you have multiple people, it gives you the context. It gives you the follow-up things. Like if after a show we come back, the first thing that happens is samples are put together and we get them out the door because we told the potential customer that we would do that. And then it's putting together the regular flow of emails, phone calls, and prioritizing. Like you're going to probably capture some leads that packaging suppliers. If you're in the market for packaging suppliers, trade shows are a great place to be. If you're not in the not in the market for packaging suppliers, it could just be kind of annoying. So it all depends on your situation. We eliminate things that, probably shouldn't have been scanned to begin with. We filter through the list and then we put together priorities about like samples, big follow-ups, and then everyone gets a follow-up, no matter who it is, as long as they are a retailer, distributor, or someone that we thought would be, conducive for a partnership with our brand.
Yeah, exactly. Lead retrieval, I've also used it since day one. It's such a great tool. It's so useful. Doing the notes. I tend to start my follow-ups about a week after the show, let everyone take a breather, take a break. I feel like July 4th is close to the show this year. So make that be a factor, is that people are going to be on holiday after. I don't want to necessarily repeat everything that Tom said because everything he said is correct, but follow up is really the key here. You're going to have to follow up multiple times because it's the summer. People are on vacation. People are out of office. So just know that the follow up is really important. Luckily, Google, if you're using Google Suite, makes it really easy to schedule follow ups. Take the time to kind of just get everything going. Even if it takes a little bit of time to kind of do it, if you don't want to think about it or you feel like you're going to forget later, write the emails, schedule your follow-ups, or even just to schedule the reminders that you need to follow up in a certain amount of time. And use the tools of the technology that you have. But don't be ashamed to follow up 2, 3, 4, 5 times because it may take that many times to do that. We finally just got into a store that has taken us 2, 3 years to do because we were supposed to get a purchase order never happened, and then these things take time. And so just know that if something doesn't happen right away, it doesn't mean that it's not ever going to happen. Sometimes it's just not the right time, and staying on point with it is the key.
Right. So, and then how would you all measure success at the show? So I think sometimes expectation is you're going to be talking to, zillions of buyers and, you're business is going to take off like overnight and all like, and there are stories like that, right? But I feel I would love to hear what your perspective is of like, how do you figure out like, was this worth it? Were we ready for this? How do we move forward? I would love to hear your thoughts.
I'll take this one first. Well, as I just said, so sometimes it takes 2 years before you get into a show. So sometimes you can't measure success by how many stores you get into right after the show. Sometimes success is by how many leads and your networking and brand recognition. Maybe now people are going to start recognizing you more because they saw you at the show. Maybe it's because I know Sophie's switched her schedule, but maybe next year you entered the Sophie's this year, you win a Sophie, and now you have that prestige of being recognized, of winning a Sophie award. So I think there's success that goes beyond just getting into stores. It can just be the experience and knowing maybe you had a good experience, but you're not ready for it, and learning that you're not ready for a distributor, or this needs to be my way and I need more time and I need to take a break and I need to come back to the show in a few years. But it's still successful because you've just gotten all these tools and you attended the panels and you've learned from everything there. So I think there are different ways to measure it beyond fiscally.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I think that, every show for us is tracked as far as, whether we won accounts from it and what was successful. But for us, and especially if you want to build a sustainable business, I think, these shows become cumulative. I think I don't think the Fancy Food Show is a get rich quick scheme by any means. And I'm sorry if I'm underselling the performance of the Fancy Food Show for you, Christy, but I think that it's exposure, it's learning and who the accounts are, and sometimes I hate it when my business partner uses it, but it's the chicken or the egg situation, right? Like you either need the retailers to bring to a distributor, or you need the distributor that distributes to the retailers, and you don't know how that dynamic works until you've had enough conversations about it, right? It's For us, it's been a journey from day one, from not knowing anything to now having been out of the legal world for 13 years now, and this will be our 13th year doing the Fancy Food Show. It's not everything, but it's something that it's a great way to connect with people. And if this show, there are some shows we've decided not to do again based on their cost and what the ROI has been and how many samples were taken from us by people running away. But I think that we keep coming back to the Fancy Food Show, both East and West, Fancy Fair down in the West. But, for us, economics is easy to say, right? Like we won this amount of business out of this show. It cost us this. What's the return on investment? That's an easy number, but I think that the intangible part is like just the constant exposure to all these buyers who might, on that fifth time walking by, like Susan was saying, it might not be a tomorrow business close. It will be, 2 or 3 years down the road. And was it because you were at the Fancy Food Show last year or the year before that mattered? It's just constant exposure. So that's kind of our philosophy on trade shows, and this trade show especially.
Awesome. All right. So I have to say the viewer question of the day is, how do you guys figure out the color of the badges? So I have some color code, like I have stuff on the back end, but like, is it something that you guys have found on the website? Is it something that you just learn on the show floor? How do you give us the scoop?
For us, it's pretty much on the fly. It's like, okay, the first couple hours of the show, it's like, okay, are there colors? What is the color coding? Is red distributor, is red retailer? So, I think it changes. It would be helpful if that information was available ahead of time, Christy, but I'm not sure if it is, and I just haven't found it. But for us, it's always been kind of on the fly.
Same thing. You just look at the badges and you figure it out.
All right. I do have that as a note, so I will take that back. But we are at time, so I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your hard-earned expertise. I know that both of you have been a big part of the Fancy Food Show, and we just want to thank you for that. But then also, you know, I appreciate the stories and the experience that you have. So with that, I'm going to let you guys take a breath and I will say goodbye to everyone else. Before everyone does go, we do have 2 more booth camps coming up. The next one is next week on June 12th at 1. And this is a How I Buy with Italy. So the really cool thing though is that if you register, you can enter a chance to pitch directly to Italy, and he is going to give feedback on your pitch. So, and that's going to be live, so it'll be helpful for people to sit in and just hear. And it's just an awesome opportunity just to get some feedback before the show, get your pitch ready. So if you register, there is prompts if you would like to be apply to be a part of the live pitch. And then the other one that we have is actually after the show, and it is all about follow-up. So these are the different strategies that that the speaker will be discussing and suggesting, so that way you can feel a little bit more at ease when you have that list of follow-up to go through. So I put those links in the chat. Please go ahead and register for those if you are interested. And the last thing is that we do have a hub for all of these boot camp webinars. We have some really helpful articles that will also help you get ready for the show. So I hope that you feel that knowledge is power and you're starting to feel really empowered and really excited. We are in June, which is crazy to think about. So on the back end SFA, we are getting ready to go, and we are so excited for everything that's to come. And we can't wait to see all of you exhibiting. And with that, Tom, Susan, thank you so much for being a part of this, and we will see you at the show. So thank you and have a great day.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.